All right, good afternoon. Looks like we got our group here. Before we get started, I want to thank Real News for hosting us today. This is the most official setup I've ever seen, so looks fantastic. Hopefully it looks fantastic on the screen. I'm sure it does. I want to shout out John and EO Dallas for getting this scheduled and allowing me to host this today. I want to recognize all of you for taking time out of your busy schedule to come out and join us today. Free lunch, I guess, doesn't really hurt incentivizing you to come out, so we'll be eating lunch here shortly. My name is Blake Winters, and I'm an EOS implementer, a certified EOS implementer, and a sponsor of EO Dallas as of the beginning of this year, 2026. So really glad to be here today. And the title of today's presentation is Accountability, the missing link between vision and results. In my time of being an EOS implementer, I've been fortunate enough to work with about 40 different teams, and all of those teams at some point have talked about accountability. Whether they really suck at it and want to get decent at it, or they're good at it and want to get great at it, wherever you are in your journey of trying to hold people accountable, I'm hoping that this presentation will give you something that you can take back to your team and help you get a little better at it. I believe any great meeting is grounded in objectives. So we have two objectives here today. First objective is first to understand if you are truly a great leader and if you are truly a great manager. So that's going to require you to be open and honest with yourself, really assess and internalize whether you're being great at both of those things. And second objective is to learn something from this to become a great leader and a great manager, again, that you can take back to your organization. Great meetings also have an agenda, so we've got a quick, tight agenda today. First is what is LMA? Get into that here in a second, and then we're going to dive into the 5 leadership practices, the 5 management practices, visionary LMA, which we'll get to in a bit, Q&A, and conclude. So we should run about an hour, if not a little bit shorter, so everyone can grab their lunch and doesn't sit and look at me like they're all hungry. Before we get started, I want to address my bias and my hope. My bias is simple. I believe EOS works. I've ran it in a business, and I've taught it to several businesses, about 40 businesses at this point. I believe EOS works. I've seen it change entrepreneurial organizations, help them get what they want out of their business. My hope is not that each of you in this room and on the live stream gives me a call and says, hey, Blake, I want to work with you. We want to implement EOS in our business. That would be great, but my hope for today is more simple than that. It's that you take an action item, you learn something, a nugget of wisdom that you can take and apply to yourself as a leader of your organization and change your business for the better. So now that that's out of the way, let's go ahead and jump in. L, M, A. Who thinks they know what it stands for? Any guesses? No guesses. Oh, we got a guess in the back?
Leadership, management, accountability.
That's right. Leadership plus management equals accountability, where accountability is the byproduct of great leadership and great management. So what is leadership versus management? Does anyone feel like they have a good understanding of what's different between those two things? Any questions from the group or any thoughts from the group? What's different between leadership and management?
Does one involve vision, the next one involve activation, action?
Yeah, that's pretty much right.
Oh, okay.
So there we go, gold star for you. So a lot of times what I hear, and I've been guilty of this too, not even guilty, just without knowing, leadership and management, a lot of times we use those terms interchangeably. In EOS, here's how we define them. Leadership is what we are doing when we are working on the business. On the business is above all of the tall grass. The tall grass is where we spend a lot of our time. It can be chaotic under there. Sometimes it can be great, but a lot of times it's chaotic. It's when we elevate above all of that tall grass. We are working on the business as if we are truly a board of directors. Leadership is also about providing clear direction for our people. Clear direction so they know where we're going and how it is that we actually plan to get there. Leadership requires creating the opening. We are never going to achieve a vision just by being ourselves. We're going to need other people to be a part of it, so we create an opening for people to step up and contribute to us achieving the vision, whatever direction it is that we're headed. And lastly, leadership requires thinking. That is taking a big step back, thinking and working on the business, truly running the business, not necessarily the day-to-day, but thinking and working on the business, the strategic side of things. Management, on the other hand, is when we are in the business. That's what we're doing when we're spending time running around that tall grass, putting out fires, chasing down things in the tall grass, in the business. It's setting and then meeting clear expectations where everyone understands what's expected of them, and then they are accomplishing and meeting those expectations. It's having clear communication. Not necessarily you always talking and directing, but clear communication is a two-way street. And lastly, it is doing and execution. So it's not when we're taking a big step back, having big strategic discussions, vision planning, all those things. This is where rubber meets the road. You said activation, doing, and execution. So that's leadership and that's management. Here's another way to visualize these two things. If we put leadership on the vertical axis and management on the horizontal axis, in EOS, two terms we have that tie out to these would be vision for leadership and traction for management. These are two key components on the EOS model, of which there are 6, vision at the top of the model and traction at the bottom. And if we were to put together a 2x2 matrix to show whether we are good or not good in this, this is the result. If we're strong in leadership but weak in management, we say vision without traction is just hallucination. We paint a beautiful picture of where we're going, and then we don't actually hold people accountable and execute on it. Vision without traction is just hallucination. When we don't have vision, we don't have traction, no leadership, no management, that's a nightmare scenario. You either don't have a business, and if you do, you're not going to have your business for very much longer. Next scenario is when we are weak in leadership, we have no direction, but we're really strong at traction. At that point, we're a rudderless ship. We may be going really, really fast, but we're headed in every direction, just sputtering around because we have no final destination. And then lastly, when we are strong in leadership and we are strong in management, the result there on our business is going to be growth. And it's my hope that each of you in this room, in your business, can get to that upper right quadrant where we are growing, strong in leadership, strong in management. So how do we become great at this? There's thousands, if not millions of books out there on being a great leader and being a great manager. A good place to start is the book How to Be a Great Boss by my colleagues Gino Wickman and Renee Bohr. Does a great job of distilling this down to about 200 pages. Again, there's tons of resources out there. I recommend that as a good place to start. And what we're going to do today is get down to the nuts and bolts of this. We're going to take leadership and we're going to take management and we're going to distill it down to 5 simple things that you can then take and apply to either assess whether we're doing a good job at leadership and management, and if not, inspire the changes necessary to become better. What's really neat here is that your style does not matter. You can be a drill sergeant that's super intense and aggressive, or you can be a nurturer that coddles your team. Your style does not matter. You can be either of those extremes or anything in between, but there's 2 non-negotiables. The first non-negotiable is that you have to be genuinely committed to want to be a great leader, to want to be a great manager. And the second non-negotiable is that you got to care about your people. You got to genuinely care about them. If you're not committed to being great, if you don't care about your people, you will never be a great leader and a great manager. So let's jump right in. We're going to start with the leadership self-assessment. If you've got somewhere to write and take notes, that's great. If you don't, as we work through this, just mark yes or no on your mental notepad, if you will. So before we get started, I want each of you on the stream and each of you in this room to think of how many direct reports you have. Not how many people are in your organization, how many people report directly to you. Is it 4 people? Is it 6 people? Do you have just 1 direct report? Whatever that number is, write it at the top of your notepad right now. Okay, as we go through this assessment, this is an all or nothing exercise, and it's really going to require you to be open and honest with yourself. So as we work through each of these statements, I want you to think if all of your direct reports would say yes, you check yes. If you have 4 direct reports, 3 would say yes, 1 would say no, I want you to mark no. An all or nothing exercise. Everyone clear on that? All right, with it, let's jump in. The first statement for leadership. I am giving clear direction. The first part of this is what we call creating the opening. If we were to look at our team, we may have 2 direct reports. As we grow, as responsibilities grow, eventually we're going to hit a point where it's too much for the 3 of us, and we're going to need to create another seat. That's when we create the opening. We create a seat where they're crystal clear on what their roles and responsibilities are, how they fit in to our team. The second way we give clear direction is by painting a compelling vision. A compelling vision outlines where we're going and how we plan to get there. And this needs to be something that we all share. It can't just be my vision for the organization. It needs to be a shared vision for the whole organization. And in EOS, we call that the VTO, which is a 2-page document, short for Vision Traction Organizer, that we all get on the same page on, 8 simple questions, and that outlines the vision. That way, when we create the opening, they understand how their role plays into the greater system towards achieving that vision. So I want you to answer yes or no, thinking of all your direct reports. Have you truly created the opening for them? And have you painted a clear and compelling vision that they understand how they're a part of? If all of them would say yes, please check yes. If even one would say no, please check no. For those of you that check no, I want you to be thinking about what you can do moving out of this session to change that no to a yes. Next statement. I am providing the necessary tools. So now that we've created the opening, we need to provide them with the necessary tools to be successful. If we create the opening and we don't provide the necessary tools, that's pretty debilitating. That's like holding someone on the ground, telling them to get up, and every time they try to get up, you just stomp them back to the ground. We gotta give them the tools in order to be successful. So what do we mean? First is resources. A Gallup poll showed that the number 2 reason that people leave an organization is lack of resources. We're not setting them up to be successful. Training. Are we properly training our people? Are we opening the seat for them, putting them in it, and then we're constantly frustrated that they're not doing things the way that we would do it, the way that we want to do it, but we've never given them that proper training. Technology, year's 2026. Every single person in this room probably has a heavy technological component to their business, maybe an AI component to their business. Are we giving people the proper technology to not only be effective, but be efficient? Their job should be made easier because of that technology. Next thing here is people. The number 1 spend for pretty much any organization I've ever come across is people. Are you surrounding your people with good people that make their jobs easier, that make their jobs better? Are you surrounding them with C and D players that make their job harder, where they're having to pick up their slack constantly, they're frustrating them, they're tanking the culture? Are we surrounding our people with good people that make the organization better? And the last one that you probably have the most easy control over making a change on is time and attention. And that is your time and attention as a leader. Are you giving them the space and time in order to invest in the relationship, invest in them as a leader, and coach them up? I am providing the necessary tools, all or nothing. Please check yes or no. Third statement, I am letting go of the vine. So I get to use my acting skills on this one, and I've got a cheesy little story for you here. I want you to imagine there's an entrepreneur that's on a hike. In this story, I'll go ahead and be the entrepreneur. I'm on a hike, and I take a misstep, and it's an unfortunate misstep because now I'm falling down a cliff. Ah! About halfway down, I managed to grab onto a vine. I look, 1,000 feet down, craggy rock, sure death. This is not a good situation. I look 1,000 feet up, I've got some upper body strength. I try to stay in the gym, but I don't have that much upper body strength. So in a moment of desperation, I call out to the heavens, is there anyone up there? To my surprise, a voice bellows down, do you believe? I look back up and I say, of course I believe. The voice bellows back down, then let go of the vine. I look down, think about what's going to happen if I let go of the vine. I look back up and I say, all right, God, number 1, is anyone else up there? The point of that story is that it is scary to let go of the vine because I'm the best at doing things. I don't know if anyone else can do what I do, right? All of these things that we think and say. So how do we let go of the vine? First is a tool called Delegate and Elevate, which we're actually going to do a quick activity on here shortly. The disclaimer with delegating, though, is that whatever we're delegating, the person we're delegating to, assuming it's a person, they need to GWC. And GWC is an EOS term that means gets it, wants it, and capacity to do it. Where gets it is their innate hardwiring. Are they hardwired to understand what's needed to do the job? Wants it is pretty self-explanatory. They genuinely want to do the job, not because their paycheck has a lot of zeros at the end of it, not because they get a cool title like super director or chief of whatever. They genuinely want to do the job. And then capacity is your learned skills, experiences, desire, emotional capacity to be able to do the job effectively. We need to be sure that if we're delegating a task, that the person we're delegating to GWCs it. Because if we don't, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to take a 1-hour task, delegate it to someone, they're going to break it, hand it back 2 days later, and it's going to take me 4 hours, and we may have just missed a critical deadline. So before we delegate, we need to be sure that the person is trained up and is truly going to be successful with that role and responsibility. There's a book by Kenneth Blanchard called The 1 Minute Manager Meets the Monkey. And the way that this plays out is the manager is sitting in the office, and all of the people come into the office one at a time with a monkey on their shoulder. The monkey is their obstacle, their problem, the thing that they're dealing with, and their intention when they walk in the office is simple. They want to take that monkey off their back and give it to the manager. And they know the manager is going to take their monkey. So what happens is one by one, they all give the manager their monkey, and by the end of the day, the manager's in his room, and he's basically in the primate house at a zoo, and there's monkeys jumping everywhere. So when you delegate something, and you know the person GWCs, I challenge you to not take their monkey. When they come into your office, talk to them, coach them up, help them, but your number one priority is that they walk out of that office with their monkey, and you don't take it from them. Once we delegate something, don't take it back. So here's the delegate and elevate exercise that helps us understand what things we need to delegate. This starts by each of us identifying 100% of our available time. So think through how many hours in a week you want to dedicate to working on your business. For some of us, our business is truly our life, and we spend 80, 90 hours a week working on it, and we're okay with that. Others of us may be 40 hours a week. Some of us may even be 20 hours a week because we're split between 3 or 4 businesses. Whatever it is, you define what your 100% looks like. And then you take everything that you do in a week that takes time. The small stuff, the big stuff, the embarrassing stuff. 5 minutes, 5 hours, whatever it is, and you list out all of your activities. Now we have all of our activities and the time that each of those activities takes, and that gives us a total time. In this example, the person is a 40-hour-a-week person. That's their maximum capacity, but they have 60 hours of stuff every week. If a 40-hour-a-week person constantly works 60 hours a week, what do we think is going to happen? They're going to burn out. They may be able to do that for a short period of time, but eventually they're going to burn out. So they're burning at 150% of their maximum capacity. So there's 20 hours of stuff that needs to fall off of their plate. In comes the delegate and elevate exercise. We can sort all of these activities into one of 4 quadrants. Things that we love to do and are great at, things that we like to do and are good at, things that we don't like and are good at, and things that we don't like and are not good at. Another way to lay these out is love and great is your unique ability, which is a Dan Sullivan term. Like and good is the quadrant of mastery. Not such a bad place to be. Don't like and good at is the quadrant of personal hell. And unfortunately, a large majority of the workforce out there, that's where they spend most of their time. If you've ever said or heard someone say, I'll do it myself, likely that quadrant. Because you've gotten good at it from repetition. You're scared that someone else can't figure it out, but you hate it. And then don't like and not good at, that is the quadrant of guilt. You suck at it, you hate it, and you're scared to speak up. So if we think about the things that we want to get off of our plate, the quadrant of guilt, get rid of 3 weeks ago, and then personal hell, we need to get rid of. So when we think of our 20 hours, look at the bottom 2 quadrants to identify the things that you want to get rid of. So we're about to move to a quick activity. I want you to pair off, you 2, you 3, whatever, 2 or 3 per group. And here's what I want you to think. I want you in your small groups to discuss, and those on the live stream, you can discuss this with yourself or call one of your best friends, whatever works. Discuss 1 to 2 of those bottom quadrant activities to let go of within the next 30 to 90 days. We didn't do our full-blown activity log, but here's my guess. My guess is when I talked about these bottom two quadrants, something popped into each of your minds that you're doing on a weekly basis that falls into one of those two categories. So I want you to discuss within your group what that one or two activities are, and then maybe what your challenges or reservations around delegating them would be. Once we're clear on what that is, let's talk about what that's going to create for us. How much time is that going to save per week for you? Now that you got this new time, how are you going to use it? If you're trying to get to under your threshold, are you going to be able to go to your kids' sports games? Are you going to be able to take your spouse out to lunch or dinner, spend some time with your family? And what are the benefits to your team going to be? So let's take 5 to 10 minutes, pair off, and have a quick discussion through these 4 things. Oh, we had a lot of great discussion going on in the room. Does anyone want to share? The one thing that they're going to commit to delegating, time saved, new time use, and benefits to team.
And if you do share, I'm going to bring in the
I
microphone.
need at least
so we can
one
all hear
person
it.
to step up and do it. There we go. The out-of-towner.
Hello, testing.
It works. It's just for the
Okay. I'm Najee Maven, CEO of Kenyatta Computer Services, based out of EO, Colorado, in Denver. One thing I put down was quoting. I need to get quoting off because that's a big bottleneck. Like project quotes, monthly proposal quotes. It's just a big bottleneck, and I need to get that off. I'm good at it, but don't like doing it.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's going to be your time saved per week?
At least a couple hours. I mean, it just depends on the workload, but yeah, at least a couple hours a week for sure.
Okay. What are you going to do with the new
Easily.
time?
Can focus more on vision, focus more on lead generation, just the things that really help push the growth.
And how's that going to help your team?
I think it's going to be big because, it's all about that next deal, right? So,
Right on.
Yeah, sales is big.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. All right. I am letting go of the vine. All or nothing, yes or no. I'm going to guess there's probably a couple of no's for that one in the room. Here's one that there's hopefully no no's on. I act with the greater good in mind. What's the greater good? The greater good is your vision. In EOS, that would be the VTO. Every word on the VTO needs to be in line with your actions and your decisions. But if you don't have a VTO, you're not running on EOS, whatever your vision is, do your actions and decisions fall in line with it. We've got to walk the talk. If we preach to put the company needs first, and we as leaders don't do that, people are going to roll their eyes and say, why would I do it then? Company needs first. That's ahead of your own self-serving interests like promotions or work-life balance. And those, not saying those things are not important. Moving up in your career, balancing your time are critical, but our actions and decisions need to be in line with the company needs first. I act with the greater good in mind. Please check yes or no. I love this quote here. A leader doesn't just get the message across. A leader is the message. So please check yes or no for that one. Number 5, final statement for the leadership self-assessment is I am taking clarity breaks. Does anyone in this room take a clarity break?
Yeah.
If you don't mind, what is your clarity break?
My office is in my home, and we have my office is in our back house, and so I'll just go out of the back house to the greenhouse where it has nothing to do with business, and there's always something to do in there. It's just a clarity break to reset.
Beautiful. Thank you. Did you notice how he said out of his office? That's what's important. The clarity break is our opportunity to work on the business. We talked about the pillars of leadership and management. We said thinking. A clarity break is intentional time that we set aside to step out from under the load, get out of the fray, and truly think on the business. It's all about creating clarity, hence the name, Clarity Breaks. It's about protecting and restoring your confidence, and it's something that's intentional, meaning it's scheduled, daily, weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, whatever it is, it's scheduled intentional time where you are truly faced with a blank legal pad. No distractions out of your normal office. This is not time that you set aside to check your emails, work through your task lists. It is time to be faced with a blank legal pad and just think. Your brain knows what to do. Your brain just needs the space and time to be able to think and let those thoughts flow. So out of the office, no distractions are critical. This can be daunting for people that are like me, where your brain goes 100,000 different directions, being faced with the blank legal pad and just staring at that. You may end up with just a doodle. You can have guiding questions. Here's some example guiding questions to help just kind of give some boundaries to your thinking process. What is the number one goal? How strong is my bench? If someone departs from my team, do I have someone ready to go that can backfill that position? Because that can happen at any time. Are my processes working well, or did we create them 6 years ago and we've never revisited them and they're actually out of date and they suck, and I've never even asked my team if they're any good? What can I do to improve communication? What seems complicated that we're always complaining about that can be simplified? Do I understand what my team loves to do and is great at? We just talked about how there's a lot of things that we do that we're good at that we don't like. Or do we just automatically assume because someone on our team is good at it, they like it? Have we ever had that conversation? Is the vision and plan on track? How do we be proactive rather than reactive? What's the people move? These are just some example questions, but the point is you can have a guiding question to help streamline your thoughts somewhat. And not always are you going to come out of a clarity break with a huge breakthrough. Sometimes you just give your time and space to think, restore your confidence, but every now and again, you are going to have a breakthrough. You take that back to the team, and it can be transformative to your business. Here's a Zen proverb that says you should sit in meditation for 20 minutes a day. Unless you're too busy for that, then you need to sit for an hour. And I'm watching the Western Conference Finals right now, and Victor Wembanyama is just an absolute freak. And he trained with the monks this summer, and you can tell every time he takes his free throws, he can get quiet, go to his place, and he's able to knock them down. So if you're too busy, more reason to schedule it. So looking at our leadership assessment, yes or no for that final statement, by a show of hands in the room, did anyone have at least one no? Did anyone have two no's? Okay, a couple of us. First, I commend you for raising your hand. That shows to me that you're willing to be open and honest and truly work on this stuff. So what can we take as action items for leadership? We can commit to ways to change those no's to a yes. And for that last one, for those of us that aren't taking clarity breaks, just schedule it. Schedule it and do your first clarity break and see what you think. No harm in that. So that's the leadership assessment. On to management now. Same thing, all or nothing exercise. And to tee this up, here's a quote from Jim Collins. The moment you feel like you have to tightly manage someone, you've made a hiring mistake. This is all about creating an environment where accountable people can thrive. So again, all or nothing, statement number one. I keep expectations clear. Expectations is a two-way street. We have expectations of our direct reports, and our direct reports have expectations of us. So often that second part gets overlooked, and it's our job as a manager to keep both sets of those expectations clear. In EOS, the expectations are simple. It is, are you able to live and breathe the values? Can you execute on your roles? Are your rocks, which are your big projects, your 90-day priorities, are those getting done? And any measurables that we can gauge success or your output, are you hitting those? Expectations are crystal clear, and when someone on your team knows that they have clear expectations and they're going to be managed tightly to those expectations, people that don't want to be held accountable, they're not going to stick around. They're going to deselect themselves from the organization because they know there's nowhere to hide. They can't get away with not meeting expectations, and they're going to go find a company where they can hide in the shadows and get away with it. So a lot of times when we can really manage to expectations, you don't even have to fire people. Those people are going to leave on their own. So I keep expectations clear. Please check yes or no. Second statement, I am communicating well. Like expectations, communication is a two-way street. You communicating to your direct reports, and your direct reports communicating back to you. A good litmus test to know that communication is going well is when you know what's on one another's minds. Do we got any mind readers in the room? No. So, if I need to know what's on Tristan's mind, and I'm not a mind reader, and he needs to know what's on my mind, how does that happen? We got to ask questions. And a lot of times as leaders, we're afraid to ask questions because we don't want to know the truth. We may be dealing with a bad situation, and we don't want to ask our team about it because guess what? The situation may actually be 10 times worse than we thought, and it was already a bad situation. So if you're scared to know, here's my advice. Get over it. Just ask the question. That's also when you're talking with someone and they roll their eyes, their eyebrow raises, or they look at someone else on the team funny, and you just blow past that. Don't. Stop them. What was that facial expression? What did that mean? Be sure that you're reading them, things that they're saying and their nonverbal cues to truly understand. We can't be making assumptions. Don't make assumptions. Not a good way to communicate. When communication isn't going well, let's say you're dealing with someone that has a poker face or you're just beating around the bush, not getting to it, you can do something that we call two emotions. So in this case, you talk with John and say, hey, I feel like we're not saying something that needs to be said, so we're going to try 2 emotions. I'm going to share 2 emotions, 1 positive and 1 negative about how I'm feeling, and then you're going to share, and we'll discuss from there. I'll go first. So I say, I'm really optimistic that we can work through this problem, but I got to admit, I'm really frustrated that we've revisited this 10 times and we don't have a resolution. John shares, and then from there, we kind of understand each other's bounds, and it can break down barriers and help communication happen. Next thing here is our question to statement ratio. So this is us as a manager thinking about our direct reports. We need to be asking more questions than statements. The golden ratio here is 4 to 1, 4 times as many questions as there are to statements. So that's a lot of rewiring that probably needs to happen. A lot of us are in management roles because we're good at telling people what needs to get done and then making that happen. But if we're always telling people, that's not effective communication. And what happens when we ask questions is people will then talk and they'll sell themselves on the solution. They arrive to that conclusion on their own, and when they can get there on their own, they're more likely to make it happen as opposed to us just barking orders at them. We should be doing 20% of the talking. Our direct reports should be doing 80%. If you think LMA means leave me alone, something has gone terribly wrong. Communication is absolutely critical to being a great manager. I am communicating well. Please check yes or no. Statement 3, I have the right meeting pulse. The right meeting pulse has an even exchange of dialogue. My belief is that any meeting that you're a part of that you don't actively contribute to, don't be a part of it. No spectators allowed in the meeting. Or those meetings where you walk out of it and say, that could have been an email, just make it an email. Doesn't need to be a meeting, right? So we're looking for this ideal meeting pulse where there's an even exchange of dialogue, and this is also where we loop in accountability, where we do things such as reporting measurables, ensuring that things are on track, and when they're not on track, not just saying they're off track, but then discussing and putting a plan in place to get those back on track. This is how we keep our circles connected. So there's 3 ways circles can connect. First is the circles can be disconnected. They never connect. We never have a meeting with our direct reports. We don't have any idea in the world what they're doing. Probably not a good idea, right? That's going to lead to some train wrecks down the line. Second is when our circles are right on top of one another, we're smothering one another, like in a past life when I used to be in an 8-hour Zoom call with my manager every day, and we were basically doing one job as 2 people, when we could have been so much more productive apart. That's not what we're looking for either. And then finally, what we're looking for is that ideal connection where our circles come together, we're productive, and then we go apart and we can still be productive, but we still have room to move around on our own. It's how we keep the circles connected. So I have the right meeting pulse. Please check yes or no. Statement 4 is I am having quarterly conversations. These are conversations up and above your performance review. So these are not performance reviews. And a tool we have for this is what we call the 5-5-5, and here's an illustration of it. I just want you to imagine there's a silhouette of you sitting across from your direct report there, and we're really just checking in on 3 things. Core values, roles, rocks, which again are the big priorities. Here's a white labeled version of it to fit any organization that's not EOS specific. What we're trying to talk about here is, are they being a culture fit? Are they executing in their role? Are they hitting their numbers and completing their tasks? And it's not me as a manager doing all the talking. It's me asking questions to understand how they feel they're doing. What's working well for them? What's not working well for them? Gives us an opportunity to understand how they're seeing it and then coach them up and put a plan in place to get better. Here's some ground rules for this quarterly conversation. First is be present and eliminate distractions. Just like our clarity break, do this outside of the office. When we have our direct reports come into our office, there's already an inherent power dynamic there, which is not what we want. Do this over lunch, at the bar, at the coffee shop, even on a walk, wherever it is. But be present and eliminate distractions. If you're in a quarterly conversation with your direct report and you're checking your email, that shows to them that you don't want to be there and you don't care and you're doing this to check a box. So don't do that. Be present. Don't say big issues for this meeting. This only happens once every 90 days, so don't every 90 days let this be the time that you uncork all the problems. As problems happen, address those in a timely manner. Be ready to ask questions. Again, they should be doing 80% of the talking. We should be doing 20%. And then we'll have a plan coming out of it And to be accountable, we need to follow up on all of those commitments made. The People Analyzer is a tool that we use at the start of this quarterly conversation. So this is an EOS tool that allows us to assess people on how well they're executing in the values and how well they're executing on their roles. So for each individual, we can rate them on a scale of plus, minus, or plus minus for each of the values, where plus is, yep, they exhibit the value. Minus is, nope, most of the time they don't. Plus minus is sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. So we do that for the values. And then GWC is yes or no. Do they get it, want it, have the capacity to do it? And now what we have is what we call the bar, which is the minimum acceptable criteria to be a right person, right seat in this organization. So if we have 4 core values, the bar may be 3 pluses, 1 plus minus, or better. What's important about the bar for values is there's no minuses. If you are actively not exhibiting one of these values, we can't have that. And then for GWC, it's yes, yes, yes. So at the start of the quarterly conversation, you sit across from your direct report. You both did your homework of filling out a people analyzer. If my direct report's name is Blake, I fill out one for Blake. Blake fills one out for himself, and then we get down at lunch, we show our cards, and then we talk through it. Maybe the first value, we both gave it a plus. Hey, you're doing a great job at this. Keep up the good work. Go to the second value. Blake gave himself a plus minus. I gave him a plus. Hey, Blake, I think you're kind of being too hard on yourself here. Here's why I think you're doing a good job. And then the third value, Blake gives himself a plus, but I give him a minus. Well, now we need to have a conversation, and I need to explain what the value is to be sure Blake understands it, talk through what I'm seeing that violates the value, and really get the point across that this has to change. And then we do this for GWC. The first time we have this quarterly conversation, we may spend a good amount of time on the people analyzer, but then the next quarterly conversation, we're both on the same page with what it looks like, and that portion of the meeting should go quick, so then we can spend the rest of the time being a little less formal, what's working, what's not working. And then what's critical is at the end of this quarterly conversation, you turn the gun on yourself. How can I be a better manager? Truly being receptive and open to their feedback, showing that you are invested in becoming better as well, and then actually executing and following through on the commitments that you make. So that's the People Analyzer. I am having quarterly conversations. Please check yes or no. To lead into our last one here, here's a quote from Napoleon. No amount of money will induce someone to lay down their life, but they will gladly do so for a bit of yellow ribbon. So our job is to figure out what is that bit of yellow ribbon that's going to incentivize them to perform. The statement is, I am rewarding and recognizing. What's important here is that we give positive and negative feedback quickly within 24 hours. Like I just said with the quarterly conversations, don't wait 90 days to uncork all this stuff. We need to be giving this feedback quickly. I have a 130-pound bull mastiff, which I don't really shut up talking about with all my clients. They're tired of hearing about her. She just turned 2 yesterday. And when she was a puppy and she would piss in the house, I had about 5 seconds to tell her that was wrong. If I waited 5 minutes and scolded her, she would think she was getting in trouble for playing with her toy. Now humans, we have a slightly longer attention span than a puppy. Instead of 5 seconds, it's 24 hours. But the point is we need to give that feedback quickly. That way it's front of mind and truly sticks. And when we're giving that feedback, it's critical that we give the negative feedback, the criticism privately, because when we criticize people in public, that's a great way to create a toxic culture, have everyone walking around on eggshells, terrified of what may happen if they mess up. So give that feedback, but give it privately. On the inverse, when someone does something well, celebrate them publicly in front of as many people as you can, because then that shows, hey, here's what good and great looks like, encourages other people to exhibit similar behaviors. Now, there may be some people in your organization that if you pull them up on stage and give them an award, they're going to be so embarrassed and nervous that they're going to quit. For those people, maybe don't do it publicly. But most of the time what I see is people that say, oh, I don't like being praised publicly, my cheeks get all red, I get embarrassed. And then they go home and they tell their spouse and they tell their kids about it, and it was the highlight of their week. So give that praise publicly. What's also critical for a lot of us in entrepreneurial organizations is we may work with family. We may work with people that we've worked with for so long that we consider them our best friends. At the end of the day, when they're our direct report, we can't get the lines blurred. We got to be their boss, not their buddy. It doesn't mean you can't love them. It doesn't mean you can't care about them. Actually, what's best for them in that role and what's best for the organization is that you don't let the buddy card trump the boss card. At the end of the day, you got to be their boss, not their buddy. Please don't let those lines get blurred. And when there is an issue that needs to be addressed, meaning people are below the bar and they're not accelerating towards being at the bar, they've either flatlined or they've actually started to descend, you got to call a strike. When a strike happens, you call a strike one meeting where you get together with your direct report, say, hey, I'm giving you a strike for being in violation of this core value, and here's 3 concrete examples of what you've done that violate that value. The reason we need 3 examples is because if it's just one thing, they're going to brush it off and say it was just a coincidence, a one-time incident. When we have 3 examples, that's a clear indication of a trend. So when there's a trend, we have our 3 examples, and then you tee up how the rest of this process is going to work. Say, all right, so here's what's going to happen. You're getting your strike one today. We're going to put a plan in place for this to be remedied 30 days from now. 30 days from now, we're going to come back together for our strike 2 meeting, and here's my hope. My hope is that you've met all of those expectations, you're at or above the bar or better, and we move on. If you're not, what's going to happen is you're going to have 30 more days to figure it out and meet those expectations. If you don't, it's no longer going to be your decision, it's going to be my decision, and this is going to be my decision. I'm going to give you the gift of success at a new organization. I'm going to let you go. I don't want to have to do that, so let's hope you get to at or above the bar. And here's how this plays out. If they come back for the strike 2 meeting, they probably met all of those boxes and they're good. When they don't show up for the strike 2 meeting, they're going to deselect themselves from the organization because they're not going to be up for the challenge. And what this does, that's a total great impact for organizations, is it says when I have a people issue from day 1, whenever I call it out, it'll be resolved by day 60. Doesn't mean the person's always figured it out. One way or another, though, whether they have figured it out or they're gone, we have a resolution. Because what I see so often is that organizations just keep these people around that are plaguing them, and they won't make a decision. They won't be decisive. So this forces you into making a change one way or another within 60 days. And there's 2 types of traps that we encounter. The first is the heart trap, where maybe we really like this person, maybe their family member or a friend. Maybe they're dealing with a really tough situation outside of work. We feel for them, so we're making exceptions for them. The other trap is the performance trap, where their numbers are simply so good that we can't imagine letting them go, but they're a cancer to our culture. They're frustrating everyone on the team. They may even be driving you crazy, but the thought of having to replace their production is so daunting. And when teams step up and have the courage to make a change in that scenario, the only feedback I've ever received is, I should have made that change earlier. Now, there may be a short period of time where you take on additional workload and figure it out, but getting rid of the cancer in the organization needs to happen. And with the heart trap, if we're in a for-profit organization, just because we care about someone doesn't mean we can keep them on payroll, and sometimes we do have to make a tough decision. So I am rewarding and recognizing. Please check yes or no. Anyone have at least one no? Great. Hopefully you're thinking through ways to make it a yes. One action item to take from this is, with all your direct reports, schedule some time and sit down and have them go through this assessment with you. Don't email it to them, because here's what's going to happen. You're going to email it to them, and they're going to tell you what you want to hear. They're going to give you 5 yeses on everything and say, you're doing great, keep up the good work. Sit down with them face to face, show that you're truly invested in being a better leader and be a better manager, and be open to their feedback and take action items out of it. So that's LMA. Leadership, management, together results in accountability. So here's your parachute for you visionaries in the room. Imagine we have some visionaries in the room that are saying, I hate holding people accountable, and I'm not good at holding people accountable. If we look at the accountability chart, every role that has direct reports, the most important thing that they do is LMA. That's everything related to leading and managing their team. The integrator holds the leadership team accountable. The heads of each of the major functions, again, this is a chart that I customize for all my clients, they hold their teams accountable. Let's zoom in on the visionary box. Visionaries don't LMA. Why? Because a lot of times they suck at it. They're not good at holding people accountable. So for the visionaries in the room and the visionaries that are watching, here's what needs to happen. Odds are, if you're in a small, growing entrepreneurial organization, you may sit in this seat and also the sales seat, or a different seat. You're probably in 2 seats, and one of those seats requires you to LMA. So the way you get out of that is you need to delegate that seat, find someone else to plug in, so you can elevate into the visionary role. Leadership's obviously a critical part of being a visionary, but you're not on the ground floor holding people accountable, because that would probably fall in one of the bottom 2 quadrants for you if you're a naturally wired visionary. Q&A, maybe a couple minutes for this if you have anything, and then we'll conclude.
I'll lead off because I have the microphone.
There we
with
go.
me. So 2 things. One, you've been wonderful. Thank you so
thank
much.
you.
And you didn't sell it all. I know that's easier said than done when you're doing an hour-long presentation on something you know about. But giving you the grace of that, though, if anybody here or elsewhere wants to engage you, is there a certain size business you work with? Or are there things that when you get brought in, it's helpful that they've already done X, Y, and Z? I'm just curious what next steps look like if somebody engages you.
Yeah, that's a great question. Size of business, EOS works for organizations, or was designed for organizations that have between 10 and 250 employees. That's our sweet spot of our target market. Now I have teams that are 3 people. I have teams that are 800 people, right, on both sides of that. But it's designed for those organizations with 10 to 250 employees. And what's really critical about that size is you have a business at that point. If you still have an idea on a napkin, EOS isn't right for you. This is about taking a company that has their market clear, they have a business, and then getting really good at the execution phase. It's not so much the ideation phase of figuring out what the business is. It's about taking a company that's executing poorly and making them better, or a company that's even executing good and making them great.
And then second follow-up, let's say somebody's not ready to engage with you yet, but they're curious about EOS. Obviously, we all know Traction. Well, maybe we don't all know Traction.
Let me give some plugs for that.
Yeah. Well, you know, what
okay.
would be next steps if they want to take a few steps on their own and kind of learn more and start working with it?
So Traction is the EOS Bible. So I recommend starting there by Gino Wickman. Rocket Fuel is a book that dives into, get to it, the visionary integrator relationship, because I'm guessing many members of EO are visionaries and they're trapped in this integrator seat. So that book's going to help you understand how getting this piece of the puzzle can really change the dynamic of how you run the business and really change your life and let you elevate into that visionary seat. The author of that book is also my father. So I highly recommend reading it. And I have to plug his new book, which is titled Visionary, that just dives into this role. It's amazing. It came out in December. Highly recommend checking that out. And then, as I mentioned at the beginning of this session, How to Be a Great Boss by Gino and Renee Bohr. Recommend going there as well.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I'll ask a question.
Yeah.
Given your father, what are your family dinner conversations like? Do you talk about this or?
We don't bore my mom with this. It comes up, me and him get to talk about it quite frequently. One of my brothers is like a crypto god and the other brother's in oil and gas consulting, so there's a lot of business talk, but typically we're just talking about OU football, if I'm being totally honest.
Anybody else?
All right, if there's no other questions, don't want to keep the people on the live stream waiting. Let's jump to conclude. I do request that one person does share for this, so maybe if you haven't spoken up, now's your time. Biggest takeaway from this 55-minute presentation, and one action item that you're going to take to either apply to yourself or go take to your team that you think is going to inspire change for the better.
The takeaway that I'm sitting here, because I was taking notes on my phone, are yes, active listening, communication skills, very important, but have systems in place to be able to, even a sheet like you could fill out and then create that conversation that takes it deeper. So that was my takeaway.
Thank you.
Your action item is? My action item is to look at my notes and the screenshots that I was doing along the way here. So thank you very much.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate everyone taking time out of their day. I know your hourly rate, whether you bill that directly or you can back into it, is really high. So we've got a very expensive group in this room and an expensive group on the live stream. Again, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to participate in this. I had a great time.